Before we start the story, I would like to say I hope all of you have a happy Thanksgiving. With that said, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. God, I used to love Thanksgiving so much. I know it's not usually people's favorite like Halloween or Christmas, but for me, it has always been unique. My family is spread around the world. An uncle who works as a first mate in transatlantic trade ships, grandparents retired to their farmhouse in the south, these kinds of stuff. For some reason, it was family tradition, however, to always gather for Thanksgiving. I'm not sure why, but it so happened since before I was born. Of course, there were times that somebody couldn't make it, but almost always the expanded family was joining in for that special day. We tried to circle around the country so that we could make sure that all the people will eventually be able to host. But most of the times, we ended up at my Aunt Jenny's house in Marion, Ohio, since it was the most central place we could all meet up inside the state. Granted, some of the family members were living outside Ohio, but that was the best we could do. It was your typical Thanksgiving night, spiced with the individual family traditions which are probably older than you could imagine. Roasted turkey and stuffing, which for some unknown reason were always accompanied by cabbage rolls. I have no idea why this tradition was always kept to the last detail, but you get the idea. All the traditional dishes were there, albeit with some extras that nobody ever questioned. We just followed the rules religiously. Now, I can see that people generally feel awkward in family dinners, or try to avoid them completely. But for us, it was different. We loved to hang out together when we were given a chance. Maybe it was because we never had the chance to spend so much time together, so as to start hating each other. But I am optimistic that this wouldn't be an issue for us. Sure, there were those uncontrollable moments when Grandpa Matthew could say the occasional racist joke and everybody smiled uncomfortably, trying to change the subject, or when our parents started commenting about how by the age of us youngsters we're already married and we should start searching to make a family for ourselves. But all those were just circumstantial. The general atmosphere was almost always warm and wholesome. But like every family, ours had its black sheep. For us, it was Uncle Aaron. He skipped most of our annual family gatherings, although, come to think of it, I do believe that most of them he wasn't even invited. You see, Uncle Aaron was your typical junkie. He had the entire package, a broken marriage, debts to everyone, and everything in lots of trouble with the police. He was always mentioned, but never deeply discussed. Usually, it would be something like, "Yes, Aaron isn't here again. I wonder if he is even out of jail at this time," or "You reap what you sow," and such general philosophies about wasting one's life. I always had this feeling that people tried to get to him, but not enough. At this point, pretty much everybody had given up on him, and when the talk came to the table, even Grandpa would stop making morally ambiguous jokes and look down to the ground, feeling sorrow for his prodigal son. For all those reasons, it was a surprise when 3 years ago my mom told me, "I think you should invite your uncle for Thanksgiving." You see, we had originally opted for our usual place, but Aunt Jenny said that she and Uncle Harold would be coming from a trip just before Thanksgiving so they could attend Thanksgiving pretty much anywhere else, but they wouldn't be able to host this year. "Are you sure, Mom?" I asked. "Aaron hasn't been in any gathering for 3 years now. I remember the last time I saw him myself. He got horribly drunk in front of the whole family and was behaving like a total jerk. I was way too young and impressionable back then, so I was terrified when he held my shoulders with his hands and stared at me for at least 10 seconds without saying anything." My mom had sent me to bed after that moment, having seen how visibly shaken I was, but the memory persisted. I hadn't seen the man since. I can't really say I ever felt any remorse for him, having seen my uncle only 3 or 4 times in my life, and one of them being almost traumatic, didn't really help in forging family bonds. In my mind, he was a lost case, and I firmly believe that. As much as I love my family, you can't force yourself to care for somebody, even if he is your own blood. But my mother insisted. This is our house, and it's always open for family no matter what. Good values to live by. I can't argue with that. So why don't you try to call him yourself? I tried to ask as politely as I could. Well, if you do the dinner and the setting of the table when time comes by yourself, I guess I can do the call. She had won that round. Still, it felt like she was trying to get herself away from it. I ended up calling. The phone rang many times. I was almost relieved, as I was about to hang up, but at the last second, the phone stopped ringing. It took a lot of time for Uncle Aaron to speak. It was as if he was trying hard to even get some words out. "Sup," he said. Uncle Aaron, it's me, your nephew Max," I answered. "Oh, yeah, right. What's up, kiddo?" he replied. I hated it when he did that. I was already 19 years old and definitely not a kiddo, but I couldn't bother at the moment. "I was wondering if you'd like to come to our place for Thanksgiving." Long pause. "I guess I can. It will be good to see you all, and especially you, young man." That gave me the creeps, but I kept my posture. Great. We'll be gathering around at 8 p.m. on Thursday. You are most welcome," I muttered. After hanging up, I felt so awkward. Scared, almost. But I wouldn't let this useless man get me this time. Well, even if I meant to, I didn't have the time to think about it. Helping my very meticulous mother prepare everything, along with my actual employment, was more than a full-time job. So, I almost didn't even realize when 8 p.m. came that Wednesday. People had already gathered until 9 p.m. I can safely say that more than I could ever expect were there, even third-degree family members. That can happen with such a broad family, but still, it was rare. I was so surprised to also see my younger third cousin Emily and her family. She was 3 years younger than me, 16 at the time, and in the past, she had a huge crush on me. Of course, that was very awkward, but I mean, as I mentioned before, teenagers are impressionable, and I was the cool, older, guitar-playing cousin, so I let it pass, although I did still feel a bit uncomfortable around her. However, she grew out of it, and we had some nice chats via Facebook regarding music and our interest in life, almost becoming good friends in that sense. She had her black hair made into a sideways ponytail, and she greeted me with a big hug and a huge smile. Then she moved on to greet the others and find her place at the table to my left. Meanwhile, many others also arrived, mostly cousins and nephews, adding up to a sum of around 22 people. And of course, Uncle Aaron was nowhere to be found. To me, that was the best news, since I had brought my girlfriend to dine with us. She already knew my parents, of course, but it was the first time she would meet my whole bloodline, and it would be to both hers and my best interest to not have a close encounter of the third kind with my uncle. However, the doorbell rang at 10 o'clock. I didn't even have to think who it was. I already knew, although I wish I was mistaken. My mom looked at me with that inescapable, "Go open the door, and I won't take no for an answer" look, so I obliged. And there he was, looking even worse than I remembered him, lost in a large leather jacket, wearing gloves with open fingers, and a pair of old jeans. He was thin, and the top of his head was completely bald, but he had long blonde hair at the side and the back, making his bald spot even more prominent. I guess it was the idea of trying to bring back his old 80s self, when he still looked somewhat cool, completely disregarding the fact that time hadn't been kind for him at all. He had covered his body odor in cheap cologne, but he couldn't completely hide it. The worst part were the eyes though, sucked inside the eye sockets, almost like small spotlights in a dark lake. A lake mirroring a creature so far away from reality and human interaction that only alcohol and drug abuse could have ever created. I got the creeps from the first second. "Hey kiddo," he said. "You've grown so much. I almost didn't recognize you." He gave me a toothy smile, using the few teeth still left in his mouth. His words felt like they were being forced out of him, like a man struggling to find something to say. As I guided him to the dining room, he grabbed me by the shoulder. In this way, we appeared before my whole family. Like, 2 old drunkards walking out of a shady bar. The others were polite with him, but obviously not entertained by his appearance. He was being loud from the first moment, yelling some very sexist things about women who mistreated him, and how we men should only have to live by our own rules. It honestly felt so wrong to even associate with that person. The worst was when he started to stare at me like he did so many years ago, and this time, he did it a lot. Many times I felt like he was looking for me in the room, and then, when he found me, he got his eyes fixed on me, and for long periods of time, I tried not to look at him, but I felt his curious gaze even when I talked to my girlfriend, or Emily who was sitting around, or anyone else for that matter. My suspicions were confirmed after I went to the toilet. I returned to find a small note under my plate. Say goodbye to your girlfriend and parents. After tonight, I am taking you with me. I will fix this, even if it means I have to kill you. It read. I admit, I wasn't 100% sober, but I felt the threatening tone of the note. It made me feel sick, and I felt horror crippling in my back and crawling inside me. What was that note about? I couldn't tell. But one thing was certain. I couldn't tell anyone about this, especially my girlfriend. I would never be able to explain the situation to her without panicking her. For the rest of the night, I tried to stay composed and not show any signs of nervousness. But I would be proactive. I would not leave Aaron from my eyes, not for a single moment. Whenever he got up to go and get some water, I would be looking at him. I didn't even miss a word of his sexist slurs, all while trying to entertain all the other guests constantly. I didn't know what this bastard had in mind, but I wouldn't let him get it. This, however, took a toll from me. Trying to focus at everything for so long was just too much even if I was in high alert. I just excused myself to go outside in the backyard and smoke a cigarette. As I was out there, trying to figure out what my uncle ever wanted from me, and why he had focused on me specifically, I heard a noise. I couldn't really decipher what exactly it was, but it sounded somewhat like a metal hitting hard on something else. Then, I heard a voice of a man which sounded like he was in a lot of pain. Instinctively, without even giving myself time to think that this could be a setup for my deranged uncle, I ran to see what had happened. The clash and the scream were heard from behind the corner of the house, so I quickly moved there, and there, I saw him. Uncle Aaron was sitting with his back against the house wall, with a small puddle of blood was forming next to him. I could clearly see the source. His already messed up hair was now drenched in blood, which was also running down his shoulder and then dripping to the ground. Next to him was an old rusty crowbar that my father used to take the nails of some wooden planks in order to construct a doghouse. It was also dipped in blood. He was slowly moving his head left and right, trying to focus. I subconsciously thanked my lucky star. This disgusting excuse for a relative of mine had slipped behind me as I was trying to relax. I was completely alone, a sitting duck. What a complete idiot to isolate myself like this. But somebody, somehow, had my back covered. I painted the picture in my head. My uncle approached me from behind, and some brave soul saw the situation and intervened a few moments before I was done for. But who had saved me? There was no one there, except me and that heavy-breathing son of a bitch in the ground. Why would somebody just do such an act and then run away? I mean, I could understand how awful it would be to actually mortally wound someone, even if that was the hopeless guy in front of me. But still, would the shock be so great that they ran away from the spot without even speaking to me? But then, Aaron noticed me. Once again, he locked eyes with me. I felt goosebumps in my spine, unlike any I've ever felt before. I was in the highest alert I had ever been in my life, and that intrusive idea was yelling in my mind, like a drill in my thoughts, operating right next to my consciousness. Finish him off, it demanded. I almost obliged, but I wasn't made from that paste. I couldn't do it. After all, it looked like he was already a goner. The guy then gestured me to approach him. Was he really so crazy that even now he would try to get something out of me? Still, I decided something that could have been the worst mistake of my life. I went closer to him. My idea was that he seemed too weak that I could easily escape him, or fight him. Damn, It feels so stupid now. Why did I ever do that? But still, I did. "Max!" he muttered. When I got close enough, that was strange. I don't ever recall him calling me with my real name. "Aaron, what the hell, man? What did you do? Were you high?" I said, trying to keep calm. "No, not tonight. It's over, Max. I tried to." It was clear that he was barely able to articulate a sentence. "Tried what, you trash? Assault me?" "No, I protected." "Yeah, right. And my grandma is a bicycle," I said sarcastically. Gathering all his strength, he grabbed me. That was enough to make my blood freeze. If he still had some fight in me, this was his chance to end me. "She doesn't like girlfriend. Please, I swear. I saved you." She who? I thought. For a reason I don't know, I raised my eyes. It was like my subconscious was guiding me, like my brain wanted to show me something I missed before. There, at the corner of the backyard, I saw her glimmering eyes and her sideways ponytail. It was Emily, the cute little cousin I loved and cared about, and she was smiling. She honestly wore the cutest, most innocent smile a teenager could ever pull, while looking at me straight in the eyes. There was blood in her hands. She even blew a kiss towards me with that bloody palm of hers. She then climbed the fence and ran away. It was all clear now. Emily never got out of her childhood crush with me. Instead, it evolved and consumed her, a twisted idea of love, a psychopath's idea of love. It was so strange. She never showed any major indications that she was insane, but I guess she could hide it well. I could see what was wrong. She hated that I had a girlfriend. She would never accept it. I couldn't be shared. And if she wasn't able to take my girlfriend out of the way, I guess killing me was the second best option. At least she didn't have to see me with somebody else then. She must have put the note under the table while I was in the bathroom. Somehow, all this made me feel even more terrified. The fact that my gut had led me so wrongly, combined with the thought that one of the youngest and least apparently most innocent members of my family was my worst nightmare, made me feel like I lost the earth underneath my feet. Uncle Aaron didn't want to kill me for any reason. He wanted to warn me, to protect me. He was just a weirdo trying his best, and he paid the ultimate price for his kindness. He spoke once more. "Hey kiddo, I'm sorry I wasn't a good uncle. I love you all." After that, his head tilted to the right, and his eyes were lost in the void forever, as he left his last breath there in my arms. "You were the best uncle I've ever had," I said softly. "You saved my life." It was extremely hard to return home and explain to everyone what had happened. At first, I tried to avoid it, but I guess I couldn't control the fact that I looked as pale as a ghost. People were asking what happened to me. I then noticed that I had blood all over my shirt and hands. I was so shocked that I didn't realize it until then. I tried to tell my story and I felt everyone's surprise and fear in the room. The tension was almost electric. Of course, disbelief followed. I was even accused from Emily's mother for trying to frame her for my own shenanigans. I felt terrible for all of this, and the fact that I ruined the family's Thanksgiving dinner, to my own reputation being at stake, and also the thought that possibly I had caused the breaking of some strong family bonds in one moment. The police were called. Matters were easier after that. They were able to identify Emily's fingerprints on the crowbar soon enough, as well as clarify that of course I had never touched the murder weapon. It looks like she had enough of the crazy to act according to her plans, but not enough experience to conceive a perfect crime. Emily's parents still didn't believe me, and Emily herself was nowhere to be found. After her flipping out that night, she had disappeared. Luckily for all of us, the police did eventually uncover her, trying to steal some food from a local supermarket. She ended up confessing everything, adding another small reference to her unending love for me as she proclaimed. Whatever. She is now regularly visiting a psychiatrist and is on medication. Of course, the police are keeping an eye on her all the time. I'd like to be optimistic about the future, but I don't really believe that any of her sanity can be saved. if she even has a sane part inside her. We still organize Thanksgiving dinner as a family, but since that fateful event, it hasn't been the same. There's always some strange feeling in the air, distrust or even fear. But as I told before, it is our only true chance to be all together. And no matter what, family is important and it means a lot, whatever may happen. But please, this Thanksgiving, even if you are meeting people you think you know well, please always try to be observant. Can you really tell for sure that everybody is who they say they are, even if they are related to you? Every family has its black sheep. Mine saved my life. I don't know if I will be this lucky next time. Thanks for watching, Wolfpack. If you want to submit your story, my email and subreddit will be in the description below. And also, if you're not subscribed, please do if you want. And don't forget to like and comment as well. Have beautiful nightmares. And I will see you next time.